Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Brad with B & Chill. Welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the new iPad Air 4th generation rumors that have just come out. Originally, on August 27th, we saw a tweet that was showing some documentation in Spanish that was supposedly going to come in the box with these new iPad models. And just today, we got an updated tweet of similar documentation, this time in English, of what we can expect to see out of this new iPad Air 4th generation. You know, Apple just announced that they're going to have an event on September 8th, supposedly to launch the iPhone 12. We'll have to wait and see how that goes, but I would bet that this iPad Air is going to release on that September 8th event date. The reason we know that these iPads are going to be releasing soon is because Apple just filed 8 new Apple Watches alongside 7 new iPads with the Eurasian Economic Commission, or EEC. And this has historically been right before Apple has made a new launch of a product line. Now, if we dig a little bit deeper, we can see something interesting. Apple has made 2 separate filings for these iPads, which usually will indicate that there's going to be 2 new iPad models releasing. And there are rumors that this could be a new iPad Pro. Me personally, I don't see that happening since Apple just released a new iPad Pro in March of 2020. So it just doesn't make much sense to me that they would release that now. And with the changes that are to be expected from that iPad Pro, I also don't think the technology is ready yet, and we'll likely see something like that happen in March of 2021. Now, the original leak of these pamphlets came from a Twitter user, Duan Rui, who tweeted out on August 27th showing these pamphlets in Spanish that look similar to a quick start guide that you would get in most Apple products that you purchase. And they seem to be pretty convincing, and they outline a lot of the things that we can expect to see in the new iPad Air 4th generation model. Now, for starters, the big changes that we see right off the bat is USB-C is now going to be used on these iPad Airs. I'm sure a lot of people are happy about that. It offers more freedom for using different dongles, faster charging, more reliability. You know, USB-C is really starting to be adapted by Apple now, and it's good to see that they're pushing this out on other products. It'll be really nice if we can see this happen on the iPhone 12, but we'll have to wait and see. You know, another exciting thing that they're adding to the new iPad Air is Touch ID. Now, if you look at the pictures, you can see at the top the power button looks a little bit longer than normal. And this is where they've integrated the Touch ID button. And in the documentation later on, we'll talk about how it shows you using that. But, you know, it's really exciting to see them make a comeback with Touch ID. Me personally, I always prefer Touch ID to Face ID, and also with them removing Face ID from these iPads, you know, they're going to be reducing the cost, which is going to allow them to meet that iPad Air price point that the iPad Pro is currently priced out of. Now, right off the bat in these images, the first thing that you're probably going to notice is that the iPad Air looks completely different. They're really mimicking the iPad Pro look and feel on this device. You're going to see more squared off edges and rounded corners, and you're going to see almost edge-to-edge screen with small bezels on the side. You're going to see the removal of the home button. And, you know, me personally, I'm really happy to see this. I think a lot of people will agree with that. The iPad Pro, it looks and feels beautiful, and whenever you add that to the iPad Air line, you're going to convince a lot more people to buy an iPad that may have been priced out of the iPad Pro price range that simply didn't need all the power that it had to offer. You know, me personally, I probably would not have bought an iPad Pro had an iPad Air been out with this current form factor, because, you know, after seeing what the iPad Pro had to offer, looking back and seeing, you know, the old iPad and iPad Air models, you know, it's just a lot less appealing, and I had no interest in buying one. Now I think you're going to see that change. A lot of people are going to be interested, and it's at a lower price range, so I think a lot more people are going to be wanting to buy this. Now, another interesting thing we're going to see in these images, on the left side there, it's a little hard to see, but if you look closely, you can tell that there's an Apple Pencil kind of lined up next to the iPad, and this kind of implies that we're going to see the ability to connect a second generation Apple Pencil magnetically to the side of the iPad, which would be huge for a lot of users because, you know, a big selling point of the iPads, I feel like, is for people that want to do digital art, and having that second generation Apple Pencil support in this lower price range will make the iPad much more accessible and allow people to get into, you know, great software like Affinity and Procreate at a lower price point. So it's great to see the potential to have an Apple Pencil 2nd generation attached to this device, and I think that'll be a huge selling point for a lot of people. Now, if we keep diving into some more of these images, another important thing that we're going to see is the back of the device, which shows that there is a camera in the top left, similar to the iPad Pro 3 style camera. And I really think that they could even be reusing parts. We'll have to wait and see. But it looks very similar to that iPad Pro Model 3 camera placement. And additionally, we can see a microphone slightly below that and an Apple logo in the middle of the device. And then below that, we're going to see a smart connector magnetic type attachment, similar to what we see already for the Magic Keyboard attachment on the iPad Pro models. So, I think Apple's really been pushing these Magic Keyboards lately, and seeing this magnetic attachment there, and that this is coming in around 10.8 11-inch size, I really think they're going to use this as a selling point to try to sell some more of those 11-inch keyboards that they haven't sold for the iPad Pro. So, anything they can add to a cheaper device, I'm happy to see it. So this is definitely an interesting selling point for them though, and it kind of is going to take some market share away from their iPad Pro, I feel like. Now, if we go back into the pictures and we look at the front of the device, we can see that there is indeed a front-facing camera. I think everybody expected to see that. However, we should know that there's probably not going to be Face ID in this camera, and it's probably going to be a lower quality front-facing camera with less sensors, just because they're going to try to cut down on cost, and this would be a good place to do it, considering they're already adding Touch ID as another form of biometric authentication. Now, another really important thing that we're going to notice here is at the bottom of the device, they have removed the home button, and this has been a long time coming. Some people might miss it. I personally don't. However, if you're one of those people, it's really not hard to get used to the swipe gesture. Me personally, it's one less moving part, and quite honestly, I'm surprised it took this long to happen. The iPhone X came out back in November of 2017 as the first device to truly remove that home button. So I'm glad to see that they're finally implementing that across the board, as I don't really see it adds much, and it's just one more moving part that can be broken. And another important thing that we can see here that is good to see is the dock has been brought over from the iPad Pro and implemented in the iPad Air. So a lot of people love the new iPad OS and the dock features, and the control center you can see is also the same, and it's nice to see them bringing it over to the iPad Air 11-inch, and it kind of makes sense because this is an 11-inch iPad. It's the same size as the smaller iPad Pro. There's really no reason why they couldn't implement these features on the smaller iPad, and the way Apple's been thinking with iPads replacing computers eventually, this is definitely something they should bring across the board to get people of all budgets interested in buying an iPad and using it to potentially replace their computer. Now, another thing we can see here in the documentation is that they are mentioning using Touch ID on the power button to use Apple Pay. So it's very clearly lined out here. This is definitely something we can see happening on this device, and quite honestly, I could see it happening on a lot of new devices in the future in favor of removing Face ID technology. Now, if I were to guess and say what price range this product is going to be, and I'm going to say it's going to be between the $500 to $600 range, just because they're going to want to keep it in that same range where the iPad Air currently sits. And, because if they do it any higher, it's going to be too close to the iPad Pro. Any lower, it's going to be too close to the iPad Mini. So they kind of want to keep their product line split up into different price ranges that appeal to different buyers. So definitely say it's going to be between $500 to $600 probably. And I could see them removing the 64 gigabyte minimum storage option and upping that to 128 gigabytes to match the currently offered iPad Pro models. Just because, in today's world, 64 gigabytes is taken up mostly by the operating system and pictures and videos and things, software. It'll fill up real fast, and storage is getting cheaper, so I could definitely see them upping that. And I'd say they're probably going to offer a 256 gigabyte variant as well as a 512 gigabyte. I doubt we'll see a terabyte, but I can't say for certain. However, I would definitely expect an upgrade in storage here. This improved design and lower cost is definitely going to appeal to aspiring professionals that maybe don't have the money or just don't justify the cost of buying an iPad Pro. So I really think that this is going to open a new market of buyers, and people interested in tools like Procreate and Affinity and other creative tools are going to really see much better use out of these devices than just merely using it for media consumption like the current iPads. Now today, another Twitter user, Soybees, has release some more documentation, this time in English. It's very similar to the documentation that we already went over. However, there are a few things here that are intentionally blurred and removed, but the things that were left offer a little bit more clarity that we didn't see in the previous leaks, and the matching design kind of shows that this is pretty reliable, considering, you know, we have one pamphlet in Spanish, one in English, both from different leakers. So it really shows that this is probably going to be the iPad Air 4th generation that we're going to see upcoming in September. Now you're really going to clearly see here that the Touch ID is in the power button as shown before, and we're also going to see USB-C charging is clearly there, and this is going to kind of imply that there is going to be second generation Apple Pencil support on this device, because it really wouldn't make sense to use an Apple Pencil first generation with this device just because it only charges with that lightning on the back where the eraser type deal is. And with USB-C being on this device, you're not going to be able to plug it up to the iPad to charge it. So it really wouldn't make any sense there to use a first generation Apple Pencil. So having a magnetically attachable and chargeable Apple Pencil second generation attached to the side of the device, in my opinion, that's the only thing we're going to be able to see here, and I would definitely bank on that being included. And once again, on the back, we can see that the Apple logo is in the center, the camera, the microphone, and the smart magnetic attachment for the Magic Keyboard on the bottom. That's all well and good. And then additionally, we can see more about the display. We can see that the bezels are going to be slightly larger than what we see on the iPad Pro, likely to account for a reduction in cost, since the iPad Pro most expensive component is the screen. So we're likely going to see the reason why the screen is 10.8 inches instead of 11 inches is because a probably 0.2 inch difference between the bezels on these devices. However, they're going to be the same size overall, so they will fit the 11-inch Magic Keyboard all the same. In addition to these increased bezels, we're probably also going to see the removal of ProMotion display technology, as well as the removal of Face ID as mentioned previously. And these are going to be the two biggest cost-cutting measures Apple's going to use to really push this product out in the proper price range. And, you know, the display is probably not going to be as nice as the iPad Pro. However, for a common user, I would say you're probably not going to notice much of a difference. And, you know, the $600 that you're going to be saving versus buying an iPad Pro, you're probably going to be better off, you know, just getting this regular device. Unless you have a profession or a hobby that you really think you need it, this is probably going to be almost just as good for almost half the cost. Well, that just about wraps up all I've got for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys are looking forward to the Apple event on September 8th, and I really think that we're going to see an iPad Air 4th generation model launching alongside the iPhone 12 and potentially even another iPad model. I know I'm really excited to see Apple launch these hardware design changes across the rest of their iPad models following the success of the iPad Pro. I know they've been sold out for a long time. So, you know, if I didn't have an iPad Pro, I'd be buying one myself, but I really think at this price point, Apple's going to see these things flying off the shelves, and I can't wait to see more in-depth reviews about them. So, that's all I've got for today. Once again, this is Brad with Being Chill. Welcome to my channel. I do all kinds of tech reviews. Please subscribe. Please like, comment. You know, stick around. I'd love to have you. If you're new here, hello. If you're returning, thanks for the support. Much appreciated. So that's all I've got. Peace.